Titanic wasn't just a movie, it was a phenomenon. Beneath the romance and the wreckage lay a gamble of historic proportions. A runaway budget, a cast that nearly wasn't, and secrets from the real ship that had stayed buried for decades. Here are 20 surprising facts about Titanic. Number 1. Cameron wanted to dive, not direct. James Cameron didn't pitch Titanic as a love story, he pitched it as an excuse to go underwater. Obsessed with shipwrecks since childhood, he convinced Fox to fund the film with promises of spectacle. But privately, he just wanted to dive the real wreck. And he did, not once but 12 times, descending 2.5 miles into the North Atlantic in cramped submersibles. The haunting footage of the Titanic's bow, rusting chandeliers and collapsing cabins wasn't a Hollywood set. It was Cameron's own film shot in near-total darkness at the bottom of the ocean. What began as one director's obsession became the foundation of the most expensive movie ever made. Number 2. The couple in bed were real. One of the film's most haunting moments has nothing to do with Jack or Rose. As water rises beneath the cabin doors, an elderly couple hold each other in bed, waiting calmly for the end. That image came straight from history. Isidore and Ida Strauss, owners of Macy's, were real Titanic passengers. When Ida was offered a lifeboat seat, she refused. Her husband couldn't join her. "We've been together for 40 years, witnesses remembered her saying, "and where you go, I go." Survivors later saw them sitting quietly side by side on deck. Only Isidore's body was ever recovered. Cameron honored them without a word of dialogue, just an image of love that wouldn't break. Number 3. The door debate that never died. For decades, one question has trailed the film. Could Jack have survived on that floating door? In 2012, Mythbusters tested it and concluded that with the right positioning and a life jacket for buoyancy, both Jack and Rose could have made it, at least physically. The internet erupted, but Cameron wasn't finished. On the film's 25th anniversary, he commissioned his own study with hypothermia scientists. Their finding, keeping two people's core temperatures above lethal levels in those conditions, was effectively impossible. Cameron's verdict stood: Jack had to die. For him, it was never about physics. It was about tragedy, and tragedy requires sacrifice. Number 4. The crew was poisoned. One night in Nova Scotia, the cast and crew sat down to a pot of clam chowder. Within the hour, people were collapsing. Over 50 were rushed to hospital, including Cameron himself. Some laughed uncontrollably, others couldn't stop shaking. Doctors eventually traced it to PCP, an industrial hallucinogen, spiked into the food. The culprit was never identified. For a production already running on fumes and exhaustion, the poisoning added one more surreal chapter to a shoot that already felt like its own disaster movie. Number 5. Cameron almost killed the song. Cameron swore there would be no ballad. Lyrics, he felt, would cheapen the tragedy. Composer James Horner quietly disagreed. He recorded a demo of "My Heart Will Go On" with Celine Dion and slipped it to Cameron without permission. The director bristled until he heard Dion's voice laid over the film's closing images. Suddenly, it wasn't cheesy. It was devastating. Fox demanded it stay, and Cameron relented. In an era of boy bands and bubblegum pop, the ballad hit number 1 and sold over 18 million copies worldwide. What Cameron nearly buried became the film's heartbeat. Number 6. The stars who almost were. Before DiCaprio and Winslet, the casting room was pure chaos. Tom Cruise, Matthew McConaughey, and Jared Leto were all considered for Jack. Reese Witherspoon, Claire Danes, and Gwyneth Paltrow were in the mix for Rose. Then DiCaprio walked in, already a teen idol, and assumed the part was his. Cameron asked him to read with Winslet. DiCaprio refused. "I don't read." Cameron held firm. "No audition, no Jack." Leo relented. The moment he and Winslet looked at each other, something clicked. Meanwhile, Winslet had been relentlessly pursuing Cameron for the role. Out of the chaos, one of cinema's most iconic pairings was born. Number 7. 11 Oscars, but not one for acting. On Oscar night 1998, Titanic tied Ben-Hur with 11 Academy Awards. Best Picture, Best Director, Cinematography, Editing, Visual Effects, and more. Cameron stormed the stage shouting, "I'm the king of the world." But one category stayed empty: acting. Winslet and Gloria Stewart were nominated but lost. DiCaprio wasn't even put forward. It was a curious verdict. The spectacle swept the room, while the faces at its center were quietly overlooked. The ship carried the night. Jack and Rose carried the world, but not the statues. Number 8. The ship was mostly real. Despite its reputation as a CGI milestone, Titanic was overwhelmingly physical. Cameron had a near full-scale replica built in Mexico on massive hydraulics that could tilt, flood, and break apart on cue. Entire sections of the ship, the grand staircase, the boiler rooms, were built only to be destroyed. Most of these CGI shots were actually miniatures and matte paintings. Only about 2 hours of the 3-hour film used computer graphics at all. When the ship split in half, it was real hydraulic machinery groaning under its own weight, with extras tumbling down slanted decks as water tore through corridors. Number 9. The original ending was completely different. The heart of the ocean wasn't always dropped in silence. In the scrapped version, Brock Lovett's crew catches old Rose at the railing and begs her to stop. She responds with a speech about the meaning of life before letting the diamond go. Cameron filmed it, watched it back, and cut it immediately. The crowd reaction was flat, and the moment felt preachy. What replaced it was far more powerful: a silent old woman and a priceless gem disappearing into the dark, with no audience and no explanation. Private grief. Eternal mystery. Number 10. Cameron drew the sketch himself. The hand-sketching Rose in the film's most intimate scene doesn't belong to Leonardo DiCaprio. It's James Cameron's. A visual artist long before he was a filmmaker, Cameron drew the portrait himself, left-handed on camera, while DiCaprio simply mimed the motion. He wanted the drawing to feel genuine rather than like a prop. It worked. Years later, Cameron's production sketches were auctioned, and Rose's portrait alone fetched tens of thousands of dollars. The director had literally drawn the moment that would define the film. Number 11. Cameron wanted them frozen for real. Cameron didn't want his actors to act cold, he wanted them to be cold. The tank water was chilled until breath fogged in the air. Winslet developed hypothermia, her lips turning blue between takes. Crew members fell ill, extras collapsed during drowning sequences. Cameron demanded 90-hour weeks, prowled the set with a bullhorn, and corrected details most directors wouldn't notice. The crew nicknamed him MIJ, maniacal genius. Winslet later said she wouldn't work with him again without a significant pay rise. But the shivering faces, the trembling in the lifeboats, none of it was performed. It was real, and audiences felt the difference. Number 12. A deleted scene caused an international incident. Cameron filmed a scene showing First Officer William Murdoch shooting a panicked passenger before turning the gun on himself. Historical accounts were contradictory. Some survivors praised Murdoch's courage, others didn't. When the scene leaked before release, Murdoch's family and Scottish officials were furious, calling it a slur on a man who likely died trying to save lives. Cameron apologized, called it artistic license, and donated to a memorial in Murdoch's hometown. The footage was cut. The controversy it raised about where historical drama becomes historical distortion was not. Number 13. DiCaprio was chaos on set. On set, DiCaprio was famously unpredictable. Cameron described him as cat-like, sullen and resistant one moment, then underwater for hours without complaint the next. His pranks were legendary. His favorite involved trapping a particularly unpleasant smell in his jacket and waving it in Winslet's face. She laughed rather than complained. Off camera, their bond was genuine. Winslet later said they'd spend long stretches in his trailer talking through life's bigger questions. Part diva, part clown, part confidant. DiCaprio made the set chaotic. He also made Jack and Rose feel real. Number 14. It played in cinemas for nearly a year. Most blockbusters peak in their opening weeks. Titanic was different. From December 1997 through September 1998, nearly 10 months, it held its place in theaters. Audiences kept returning, first on dates, then with friends, then dragging their families along. Teens memorized the dialogue. The film rolled past $2.2 billion worldwide, becoming the highest-grossing movie in history at the time. It wasn't a hit. It was a ritual, a cultural tide that simply refused to go out. Number 15. The extras went to etiquette school. Cameron wasn't satisfied with extras who merely filled the background. He wanted a living, breathing ship. First-class passengers were drilled in Edwardian etiquette. Correct posture, the precise way to hold a teacup. The choreography of formal dining. Steerage extras were taught in the opposite direction, rowdy folk dances and the looser physicality of immigrant life below deck. Cameron believed that even if the camera never caught a single extra clearly, their collective energy would seep into every frame. The result was a set that felt inhabited, a society recreated in full right before it was drowned. Number 16. A real grave became a shrine. After the film's release, fans searching for the real Jack Dawson found a name on a Halifax headstone, J. Dawson. Joseph Dawson was a 23-year-old Irish coal trimmer who really did die on the Titanic. His grave was immediately transformed into a pilgrimage site. Flowers, lipstick kisses, love letters. Tour guides wove him into the Titanic mythology. He had nothing to do with Cameron's fictional character. His name simply matched. Jack Dawson never existed, yet Joseph Dawson became famous in death. Hollywood had rewritten someone's real memory without even trying. Number 17. The pitch was one sentence. Cameron didn't arrive at the studio with a script. He arrived with a single line. Romeo and Juliet on the Titanic. That was the entire pitch. Fox executives greenlit what would become the most expensive film ever made on those 6 words. The simplicity was the point. Everyone already knew the ship would sink. The only question was whose story you'd be watching when it did. A billion-dollar gamble that fit on a napkin. Number 18. The sequel that never existed. For years, a rumor circulated online about Titanic 2. The Return of Jack, in which DiCaprio's character is found perfectly preserved in ice a century later, thawed out and forced to reckon with a world where Rose is long dead. No such film was ever made or seriously planned. It's pure fan invention. But the fact the story kept circulating says something about the film's grip on the imagination. Audiences didn't just mourn Jack, they couldn't accept that he was gone. Some stories end on screen and keep living anyway. Number 19. Cameron went back to the wreck. Cameron couldn't leave the Titanic alone. In 2003, he returned with actor Bill Paxton and a team of scientists to shoot the documentary Ghosts of the Abyss, sending miniature camera-equipped submersibles into rooms that hadn't been seen in 90 years. Midway through the expedition, news of the September 11th attacks reached the crew at sea, an eerie parallel between past and present catastrophe. The film became a 3D IMAX experience that blurred the line between science and cinema. For Cameron, the ship was never just a backdrop. It was a lifelong obsession he'd barely begun to exhaust. Number 20. The real heroes were on the Carpathia. At 4 a.m. on April 15, 1912, the RMS Carpathia appeared on the horizon, its smokestacks glowing in the dawn. Captain Arthur Rostron had pushed his ship beyond its limits, racing through icy waters to reach Titanic's survivors. For hours, crew and passengers hauled the freezing and half-dead from lifeboats, pulling more than 700 people aboard. The Carpathia diverted to New York, its supplies strained, its decks turned into makeshift hospitals. Some survivors lived into the 1980s. Others died weeks later from shock. Margaret Molly Brown later led an effort to honor Rostron for his heroism. In Cameron's film, the Carpathia is only glimpsed. But in truth, it was the fragile bridge between despair and survival.